I love to see the towns passing by and to ride these rails neath God's blue sky. Let me travel this land from the mountains to the sea, 'cause that's the life I believe He meant for me. And when I'm gone and at my grave you stand, say God called home your rambling man.
Welcome to Ramblin' Man Podcast episode number 139. This one's with Nathan Kunst, and we talk about how he went from fine art to prop making to knife making. It's a great talk. Nathan's an interesting dude, and I was glad to have him on. And thanks to Hannah Minocchio for hooking me up with Nathan. If you'd like to find out more information about him and what he's doing, give him a follow on Instagram at burley.fabulous.knives. BURLEY period FABULOUS period KNIVES. I appreciate Nathan for being on. Sponsor this week is Feral Giant. Feral Giant is a graphic design, illustration, and social media consultation company based here in Knoxville, Tennessee. So they do work for clients big and small all over the country, all over the globe, in fact. But they also do photography, videography, video editing, and audio editing, website design, SEO, writing, content development. Hell, they'll babysit your kids if it nets them money. So make sure you give them a follow on social media on either Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, or LinkedIn at Feral Giant. And be sure to give them an email today and hire them for your next project. Without much further ado, here's the episode. Okay, this is going to be a very dad thing. So what is the weather in Cleveland like right now?
Love it. It's pretty cold, getting warmer. I feel it quite a bit more because I work out of a dump of a garage shop, so it's like if I'm not running the forge, it is terrible.
So I'll give you there's a guy I know, I'll have you look him up later, but it's I forgot to mention in my rules that I give homework on this podcast. It's Phillips Forged. Phillips.Forged. It's 2 L's. That's John. And he won the I can never remember the name of it, the knife show, the competition
the
show.
Forged in Fire show.
He won it. He won it one of the times. And his first shop was in his garage. And when I first went in there, you could barely walk around it. It was hilarious. And then he kept building out, and I was like, no, this is very nice, dude. And now he's got a proper shop, but I guarantee you it's still no AC, no heat. So.
Because it's hard because it's like, I could put a heater in it or whatever, but then, you run the forge, and even if you have a garage door open, it's still like over 100 degrees in the place, and doesn't work well for the summer either. So you got to just you do the take a water bottle and you poke a hole through the top, and you just like dousing yourself constantly.
Well, I was going to say, if you can imagine down here in East Tennessee where it gets into the 90s and 100% humidity. Luckily, John weighs, hopefully he will listen to this, and I say this lovingly, John weighs like 100 pounds soaking wet, so he can handle the heat a hell of a lot better than I can handle the heat. I'd be dying.
Yeah, same. If I was working out there, I would like invest in building, those like grocery store vegetable misters. Just build one of those.
So maybe looking at one of your knives, like, why does it have these tiny little dots? Like, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. That's nothing. It's only the summer releases that have those. It's like,
Don't worry about
It's my special summer patina release.
it. We call it the dewdrop. That's what we call it. The dewdrop. Yeah.
Oh man.
Okay, so you're in Cleveland. So are you originally from there? Where are you originally from?
Yeah, I'm from Cleveland. I was like, living here till I was around like early 20s, then left for a few years, and then came back like mid 2021.
Oh, geez, right in the middle of the pandemic. Holy crap.
Yeah, pandemic was part of
Oh,
that.
okay. Okay.
Coming back. But yeah, and then been here since kind of right around the time I was making knives too. So I've been doing that since I've been back here in Cleveland.
Okay. Do you mind my asking, where did you move away to?
Yeah, there's good lore in that. I first moved to it's like pretty funny to a ghost town in New Mexico for like a couple years. Just kind of to really get away. I was a freelancer, so like where I was kind of didn't matter terribly. And then moved around the New Mexico area for a bit, and then went all the way to Philadelphia for like the better part of a year, kind of right before pandemic hit.
Okay. How was New Mexico? Like, is it, were you in like a very barren area, like very empty?
Yeah, it was so it was a town called Magdalena, which is kind of in the middle of the state. It's like up on a mountain. It's real small, just like people who just like do whatever and like cattle ranch and have art studios and just do whatever.
Yeah.
It was like right next to this like big space imaging array, and like that was it.
Oh, is that where the very large array is?
Yeah, it was right
Okay.
next to that. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I only know that from the film Contact with Jodie Foster. Yeah.
Yep. They were big on that.
And I'll rip off Mark Maron. Was there a lot of topaz in that art? Is it topaz or what is the blue one called?
Oh, turquoise.
Turquoise. Sorry.
Yeah.
Because he's from Albuquerque, so he's always like, always in that region. There's a lot of turquoise going on.
Mm-hmm.
Topaz. What the hell am I thinking? Good Lord.
Close enough. T-Rock. But yeah, that was pretty fun. Just like was out there, did like a bunch of like freelance work out there, then moved into Albuquerque and Santa Fe and like worked between those areas for a bit. But it's still like probably my top favorite place lived, even though it was like completely barren. It was still my favorite.
And isn't it kind of wild, like in the winter months or even in the summer months where it's like super hot in the day, but it feels freezing cold at night?
Oh yeah, and especially in the ghost town where we were up on the mountaintop, like it would snow at night. It was one of the few areas that would like consistently get snow, but like just on our little mountaintop, when you would drive into the town 30-40 minutes where you would go get your groceries, it would be completely fine.
Wow. So when you were out there, did you this is a stupid ass nerdy ass question, but because you were in kind of a barren place, did you see any weird wildlife that you wouldn't normally see?
Oh yeah, a couple stories. In like the summer into fall, you would hear coyotes at night all around you. You like they would be at one end of a mountain, and like way at the other end of town, you hear packs like howling to each other back and forth. One of the first stories we got moving in there was from the like town mechanic. It was the only place you could drop off a U-Haul, and he was like, don't drive in the evening or at night during the fall months, because that's like elk mating season, and you could be driving real slow up the mountain and they'll just like come out of somewhere and like run into your car.
That's amazing.
So we held that pretty true to try to not do that. So we're like, well, really? It's like, oh yeah, they'll think it's competition. Even they won't stand out there like a deer in the headlights. They'll hide and wait and just like
Oh my
run
God.
straight into your cars. We're like,
That's
oh,
amazing.
awesome.
That's amazing. Yeah, I'm thinking like, would you see lizards or anything? Because I would think that area would be a lot of that too.
Yeah, we didn't get terribly many lizards up on the mountaintop.
Snakes. Yeah.
Oh, one more. This is a big one. There's a huge crane migration thing that happens.
Okay.
A bunch of people like come down to kind of that southern half of New Mexico to like watch them, and it's like a big thing because there's tons of them everywhere. And it was when I felt like, oh, this is different. I live here. I'm not just a visitor. When you get like extremely annoyed by them really quickly, because it's like being invaded by pigeons or seagulls, even though it's these like huge, beautiful birds. But like when there's a group of like 200 of them blocking up the road for like the third time of the day, it's just like, I hate these fucking cranes.
That needs to be on a t-shirt. I hate these fucking cranes.
Yeah, that would be. I would like, sell that in like the visitor center of the town. But it's so funny because this little town would be full of bird enthusiasts, like traveling down there to watch them, and they would get upset seeing them on the street. Where like me and everyone else would, go down the street, you just like blare your horn to like scatter them. We're like, this is my like 18th crane pack I've tried. So,
oh my God. Okay, so growing up, what did your folks do for a living?
Pretty like, well, like half and half between like pretty like working person. My dad was a custodian for close to 40 years. My mom jumped around with things a lot, between like first being into working in like film and TV to like fitness, and so was very like spread around in career paths.
Okay. Do you have any siblings, or is it just you?
Yeah, I have one brother who's like a little over 10 years younger than me. So there was a lot of like being extra parent thing happening as I was growing up,
So you're one of the club. My sister is 11 and a half years younger than me. So
yeah,
it is just a friend of mine and I were talking about this on Twitter the other day. I was like, there's a whole book a therapist could write about that age range of like what it's like, because you're not old enough to be like out of the house soon. But you're also old enough to where like you're going to watch the kid tonight while we go do something else.
Yeah, and it's a pretty like, it's a good story when you're like around that age and you know how to change a diaper, and yeah.
But you also get to be, so this is, oh God, you're going to get into my old man theories here.
Cool.
I worry about people under a certain age at this point when it comes to like music. Because, when you were younger, you had like the uncle or somebody that was older that hipped you to like shit that was cool when they were young. Mm-hmm. So it was like with my dad and uncles, it was like, Pink Floyd and Charlie Daniels Band and ZZ Top and Joe Walsh and Buddy Miles. It was all that, 60s and 70s stuff. But nowadays, because you can pull up everything on your phone, I feel like kids now are missing that. So when like that TikTok trend happened where that dude was riding on the skateboard, drinking the cranberry juice, listening to Fleetwood Mac.
Yeah.
It was all the kids going, we just discovered this, man. It's like, man, you didn't have that cool older brother, uncle. So like with my little sister, I was taking her to shows when she was a kid that I have told her, I was like, you don't know how lucky you are. Like I took her to see Lou Reed,
Oh, cool.
Elvis Costello, but then like the Dresden Dolls, like weird, like abstract shit. I was like, I took her to see Nine Inch Nails when she was like 8 or 9 years old.
Oh, that's awesome.
So it was like, please tell me you understand. And I was like making her listen to the Replacements and stuff. I was like, yeah, you need to listen to the cool shit. Come on. If
Yeah.
you're going to be hanging with me.
I do like, that you could see that kind of different way of discovery though in real time, like between like Stranger Things with Master of Puppets and Kate Bush.
Yeah.
And all those that are like, it was like I was introduced by my, father and cool uncle to like Kate Bush and stuff, and always really, still one of my top favorite artists. And like seeing that, come back as something popular, even through like a trend like that, is still super cool to me.
Oh yeah, and I totally don't mean it in a gatekeeping way. I mean it more in a I feel bad for them, because there's nothing like sitting down with somebody who is the cool older person, like the cool older sister or something, being like, you got to listen to this and understand how great this is.
Yeah, there's like a different like special memory involved in that. Yeah.
Yeah, I work with a bunch of 22 to 24-year-olds. And I will mention names of bands or stuff, and they're just like, I don't know who that is. I was like, you are killing me, man. It's like I would say you're killing me, Smalls, but you're too young to get that damn reference. Like to where I almost want to give a class and be like, hey, boss of the company, sorry, I'm going to give like a 30-minute lecture every week on music that they should know. Like, here is Public Enemy. Please listen to Public Enemy. Like,
if I worked there, I would love that.
Yeah, it's an insurance company, which would make it even weirder.
It is a perfect use of work hours.
Oh man. So when you were young, were you always into like making stuff? Were your parents kind of into art or making anything when you were a kid?
Oh yeah, they weren't super artsy. And it's pretty like few and far between in my family, but they did well to really foster it. I distinctly remember over the course of like several summers as a kid, the throwing shit at the wall to see what stuck between art and like sports. And I was really bad at sports. I never, cared about playing baseball and do it and all those kinds of other things at camps and stuff. And and so I really had the interest for art and making things, and so they helped to foster that a lot.
Okay. And was there anybody in your family that kind of did art or anything creative for their job?
Well, I kind of my mom, who worked for a while as a producer.
Yeah.
So kind of had the sense, even though they were in more of like a technical field than a creative field. I had an aunt who went to art school and was a big supporter of fostering that interest. Okay. They're a part of my family who I'm still pretty close with, because even now, they're older now and retired, but my uncle has a huge like fixation on making like suits of armor and stuff. So it kind of all blended together into my interests in making, and which later evolved into like prop making and other things, and kind of all circled back now to bladesmithing now.
Okay.
Yeah.
You said your dad was retired. Did he get into anything after he retired, like any kind of hobbies or anything?
Yeah, he was a musician a lot of his life, and was able to like pick up playing guitar again, which has been real good. Whenever I come back there, always would see him in his chair with his amp and his guitar and playing all day when I'd be there. And that's always been really great to see.
That's awesome. Oh God, guitar and amp. So what kind of music was he playing? Was he playing it? Was he doing the Van Halen? Was he doing the beep, 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 beep?
No, he's a blues rock guy.
Oh hell yeah. Oh hell
Yeah.
yeah.
He had what does he have now? A Gibson Firebird. That's his main axe.
Okay.
And
I would be curious how an Ohio person feels about this. Has he listened to the first few Black Keys albums? Because they are so bluesy.
I don't think so, or at least he hasn't mentioned it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So they were a band.
I'll make a note of that.
Yeah, they were a band that used to play here all the time when they were coming up, and then all of a sudden they hit a point, and I don't think they played Knoxville in like 16, 17 years. I was like, what the heck? Y'all used to be down here all the time, and now no more. Them and My Morning Jacket has finally started playing here more, but they were the same way. They played a lot and then there was a good like 10 years where they didn't really play here, and I can never figure that out.
It's a huge time jump. Yeah, I'm typing a note of that now. Just
Okay.
ask my dad about the Black Keys.
Yeah.
Great.
I'm trying to think. So my dad is a retired truck driver, and he does nothing but go to yard sales and auctions and thrift shops, and will bring me boxes of records. So
That's awesome.
I'm looking. I guess this JJ Cale is the closest I've got to something that's kind of bluesy. Although this one was a major win. This old Barry White album. I was like, that
cool.
is a giant win, and I'm taking that. And he was like, well, I kind of wanted to keep. Nope, that's mine, Dad. Sorry. Give it to me, damn it. I want that old Barry White album. Do you remember anything like when you were a kid that kind of stood out or piqued your interest in like making things, like something at a museum, something you saw at school?
There's a lot of things. One of the main things that got me interested in prop making, I only remember this because I shared this story for some reason, like relatively recently. It's not the definitive story, but it's the one that pops up now, is being showed the movie Alien before I saw like Star Wars and any of those things as a kid, having one of my family members show it to me, kind of being scared of it, and then having the family member tell me, oh, that's just like a big puppet, that's a guy in a suit, like don't be scared. And then I'm just like, wait, what? Like someone made, like, do you know more about that? Can you tell me about that? And then that started off the nerdery of being into that.
So when you were in school, like in high school, did they have like a theater department or anything that you could work in and help build props or sets?
Yeah, although I didn't get into working in theater until like relatively recently. I always was doing like the fine art classes, doing more of that, the like drawing and painting, some of the like ceramics classes or anything they offered. It's pretty funny that I didn't really like do any of that tech side of anything in a theater department like up until maybe like a couple years ago, to be honest. That's my my other job right now, is working in theater.
I always loved that story about Nick Offerman, that he was a struggling actor and then just got into building sets and stuff. That's what sustained him over the years and got him really into woodworking and such, was building theater props and sets. Okay, so you're in high school. Do you kind of know what you want to do for a living, or not really?
No, not really. I knew that it would be something in a creative field because I wasn't too good at anything else.
The math wasn't mathing.
No, thankfully geometry was like the only thing I was like kind of good at. I think it was because it was the most visual.
Yeah.
Um, and ends up being like probably the most practically used mathematical thing that I use now. Um, and kind of didn't go that way until about like right after high school when I had like a summer job right before going to art school where I worked at a special effects film company.
Shit.
And like wanted to got a cat in the screen.
Oh man. I may have to clip that out. All of a sudden the cat just entering. You're like, I work in special effects. Cat, enter cat across the screen. That was awesome.
Maybe not. It could be cool. Good real moment.
That was perfect timing. Oh my God.
It was. He's very good at that. Um, but yeah, and then knew that I wanted to kind of work in that field. And then went to art school, and then over summers, kind of worked back at that shop sometimes.
Okay. Well, in going to art school, did you go away to art school, or is there somewhere there in the Ohio area that you went to?
Yeah, I went to the Cleveland Institute of Art. So
okay.
It was nearby. Yeah.
Did you have a focus or a track that you were on there?
Yeah, I was in the fine art block. I was a sculpture major.
Okay.
Technically the last sculpture major before it got blended into, I forget, something with like more of a technological focus. I don't remember its name. But yeah, majored in sculpture and and drawing too.
Okay.
I had two.
Here may be my stupid question. When it comes to sculpture, did you get to try a bunch of different things, like working with clay, but also maybe working with like metal or welding to learn all of those different ways of building sculptures?
Yeah, we had a really good department who gave you a really wide breadth of like woodworking, metalworking, doing like mold making and casting, all the way up to like installation work, like lighting and projections. So you kind of got like a big sense of a lot of technical aspects. Between there and the special effect shop I was working in, I became like a super equipment nerd of like running all those things and using like 3-axis mills and vacuum formers and like just learning a bunch of obscure ways to make stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
You working in that shop. So I remember, because I'm a movie nerd, that there was a point where Ohio gave tax breaks, and there was a lot of films, like the early Marvel films were made in Cleveland. Because there's like a scene in one of the I guess it's the second Captain America film where they go into SHIELD headquarters, and it's the Cleveland Museum of Art. Because I had just been there, and I was like, wait a minute, I recognize that. So was this in that era?
Kind of, but the shop I was at, I don't know if it was because it's the work they got or because it was the most fun, but they did a lot of lower budget or campy like horror movies and stuff that you would see on Sci-Fi Channel.
Okay.
So it was, I think about it now, I think it was on purpose, because it was always like making something like really goofy or like effects that were really stupid but like more fun. They didn't have to be as polished. You could make like a doofy ogre or a really funny head that blows up.
God.
So yeah.
Oh my God. So I'll go backwards for a second. You said you watched Alien when you were really young. So were you always into like horror films or sci-fi films growing up?
Oh yeah, a little bit. It more into sci-fi, and that's current now. From Star Wars, and I'm a big Trekkie too. I am a big giant nerd. in almost all aspects of my life.
So since I'm going to make an assumption, since you're younger than me, I'm going to ask about two movies because I'm curious. Actually, there's four, but they were stuff I grew up in the 80s. So watching Explorers. Have you ever seen Explorers?
No, I don't think so.
So
Or it's
it's
just not in my memory now.
it's Ethan Hawke and River Phoenix's first film, and it's about this group of kids. And I'm going to spoil a little bit. They end up building a spaceship out of a tilt-a-whirl and go up into the sky. It was my favorite film as a kid. Now, does it hold up? If you're watching it now, it may not hold up, but I love that film so damn much. And there's another one called Batteries Not Included.
Well, that one's more familiar.
But it's set in New York. It's got Hume Cronin and Jessica Tandy, and there are these little alien spaceships that come down to this building. And I think it was written by Brad Bird, who did The Incredibles and Ghost Protocol. I think it's him that kind of wrote that film. And I love that film. It's very sweet, endearing film. And then the other two were Last Starfighter and crap. What is the one where the kid Flight of the Navigator? Those are ones it's hard looking at those effects now because they are rough.
Yeah, they're rough, but it's like, but you could, they're fun to see because you could see them operating and working, and that's what I like. There's always, like, I've said this a lot before too, especially the first of the new sequels of the Star Wars movies. If ever I get asked like a favorite scene, there's always this one where it's like a passing shot of a crashed Star Destroyer, but in that passing shot is this little like bird that pops out of the ground, and it's like the most puppet thing in the whole movie because it like barely moves right. It just kind of looks like it's on like one little like path of articulation, just like one joint. It just kind of like pecks at the ground, and it looks beautiful, but it moves really stupid. And I was like, that's my favorite thing because that's just like a straight up puppet.
Oh my god! So I have to recommend another thing to you. If you ever make it to Atlanta, there's a place called the Center for the Puppetry Arts, and it's like half Jim Henson, half historical puppets. And I've been twice. I went twice last year, and it's pretty amazing.
That's cool. I could really nerd out about that.
Okay, so let's see. You're in college, but you're doing the summer kind of, what'd you call it? You wouldn't call them internships. You're actually working, right?
Yeah, it like started as an internship, and then I just kind of came back. So it's just kind of like being mentored there and working on projects. Yeah.
So is that kind of like the track you stayed on even after college, was the building of props and all of that? Was Knifemaking at come in at any point of this?
No, Knifemaking has not been until like mid around like 2021 area. I didn't touch it until like a couple years ago.
Okay. What made you drop into Knifemaking?
Yeah, so it was during like the COVID shutdown, and with a lot of life events happening, it started kind of as a hobby to center myself and work on something that's kind of more detail and craft oriented, and to kind of figure out a direction, really, if I'm going to break it down. And it kind of grew from there into being something that's like, this isn't just going to be like a temporary thing to kind of like get my groove back, but it's now grown into something like I think I want to keep this as a full-on practice.
Okay. And Man, since it was the middle of the pandemic, like was there stuff you already knew about, or was there somebody you could kind of like mentor with, or was it like just a YouTube rabbit hole of figuring out how to
Yeah,
do things?
a YouTube rabbit hole, and starting off in stages. Like the first few I made, I wasn't really forging as much. I was cutting them out of pieces of steel, working on like the shapes and beveling and seeing how I could get them to work, and figuring out how to, do the woodworking involved. And those, it started off as a little more getting the aesthetic more than the function, and then kind of grew an
Okay.
interest in forging and uh, getting into kind of all of the aspects of making it. And so it was a very like slow evolution.
Did you, from your shop, like your forge and everything, did you build a lot of the equipment yourself? Or because like I was talking about my friend John, like what was it? There was a shit. You're going to know this term more than I am. It's flat and it just smashes the metal.
Oh, like a power hammer?
A power hammer. So he found one and it was going to be like, let's say $45,000. And he was like, screw this, I'll just build one. And he was like, you know how much it costs to build that one? $1,500. Like, he just knew enough to build stuff. I'm curious if you're the same way.
Yeah, it was a little bit half and half. My first forge was a chimenea fire pit with a steel tube and and a shop vac hooked up backwards to blow air
Okay.
into it.
Okay.
And then did end up buying like kit parts of a small forge, and then getting all the other accoutrements, like make the pipes to hook up, big propane tank into. I didn't go too much with like a power hammer or anything. I make a lot of small things, and I get pieces of stock that are relatively like
Okay.
square and close to the size that and thicknesses that I forge out to. So I don't work from like huge lumps of steel, rather than cut off a rectangle of stock and forge it out from there. So I can do it by hand relatively easily.
I remember this in his old shop. I don't know if it's true in his new shop, but he just had scrap and junk metal everywhere, where he would just melt shit down and make it. Do you do any? You don't do it?
No. My shop's a little small for that. And also, like, I'm a little reticent to use steel that I don't know the types of,
Right.
because it kind of goes with the process of how I make them. I kind of and the finishes that they're on and the style I make them, that I kind of need to know exactly what it's made of to achieve the effect that I want. So, but I mean,
I would bet he doesn't do that anymore. I would, if I had to bet, knowing John, I would bet he did that in the early days to learn, because it was just crap. And he could learn what works and what doesn't work. Because he works a lot. We'll get into this later, but he works a lot with Damascus steel.
Oh now. Yeah. Oh man. Yeah. And having the equipment to be able to make that yourself is huge, because I mean, it's a lot of people's jobs, just making blanks of Damascus steel for people, and man, what a dream having that, to just be able to, I'm going to put this and this together and pattern it, and I have all the stuff, and I can just make whatever pattern I want.
So we're still in the pandemic. Jesus, it's weird. It's weird to talk about, but since it's opened up a little bit, have you found other people in the area that kind of do metalworking that you can talk to or get advice from?
Yeah, there's one, not knife maker, but like blacksmith and sculptor, kind of in the area that I talk to. There's a bladesmith out of like Akron. I ask for advice and things from once in a while, and a couple smiths in Japan that I also have a a relationship with, I can ask them things too, because I make Japanese style kitchen knives.
Okay.
So
So, okay, here we go. So what you're going to have to explain that one to me. So what separates that? What makes a Japanese style knife?
yeah, so it's a big separator is that the knives aren't full tang knives, which means that like a European knife or common chef knife here, you'll see that it has like in the handle, you can see the metal through the top. It looks like it's all one piece, and there's two little pieces of wood that are pushed to the side of it. That means that from tip all the way to the handle, it's the same piece of metal. Japanese knives are like partial tang, which means you have the blade and they go down to a thinner piece of metal, and they're inserted into a wooden handle. And they're kind of made that way because unlike traditional or common European chef's knives, you don't really ever hold them by the handle that often. You kind of pinch them at the tip where the handle meets the blade. So you're kind of using more of your fingers, and the handle's mostly there for balance. So you kind of operate them a little differently. And that's kind of the main defining characteristic. You'll see like the knife be generally like thinner blade, but you might see like a big kind of octagonal handle across it.
Okay. What made you choose that as something to focus on?
Again, like a slow progression.
Okay.
I wasn't making them that way. And then one time I got like one of my first ever like requests for a custom order on Instagram was, oh, could you make kind of in a Japanese style? I'd really love that. And I gave that a try. And that at that point on that first one, it wasn't as traditional. They were full tang knives with little pieces of wood on the side. But after doing that first one, I kind of started wanting to explore that aesthetic a little more, and that method. And then after kind of making that first one, any other kind of request I got for a custom was still a Japanese style. There was kind of a pull in that direction that kind of landed me to, it's kind of how I make them now.
Okay.
And it's a processes that I've grown to really fall in love with.
Okay. Did you ever work in the food service industry? Because you were talking about how to cut stuff, or is that just something you kind of learned from when you started making the knives?
Yes, that one. I've worked, classic, right? If you're a working artist, right, you work as a server sometimes.
Yeah.
But I think I was always like, I love to cook personally at home. I think I'm maybe too nervous to work in a restaurant kitchen. I don't know, but a lot of those like little things I know about how they operate is kind of come from learning and making them.
Okay.
That's not a rule though. If you buy one, I mean, it's really like if you buy a knife, you use it however it's comfortable for you to use it. It's just kind of the traditional distinction of.
Okay.
I never want to tell someone they're using something wrong,
Well, not to brag, but I worked at Taco Bell, so I don't like to put on airs, but Taco Bell is what paid for me to go to college.
Feel that.
And also, I always go back to I had a GM at Taco Bell, and this is 96 to 98. That he was like, he had a theory back then. He was like, I think every high school kid should be made to work for at least one semester, at least 6 months in the service industry, whether it's working fast food, a restaurant, or maybe even like as a bagger at a grocery store or something. He was like, I think that would completely change the world. because I think you would treat everyone completely different if you come from those worlds.
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah, especially to, yeah, I mean, being on the reverse end of someone just kind of belittling you based on just what you can see them working
Yeah.
in. Yeah,
Yeah, the
yeah.
us and them of it all. How many less Karens would be in this world if everybody had to work in the service industry?
Oh yeah, God, probably be. I mean, I feel like at some point you'd always get some, but I live in hope that it would be significantly less.
That utopia where everybody just had to work in the service
Where
industry.
everyone tips more than 20% and everyone is
Yeah.
cool and puts the shopping cart back.
So I don't, oh God, don't get me started. Oh man. I will say this is going to sound like a humble brag, and I totally don't mean it this way, but I have said this to a lot of people because I'm like trying to actually influence people in a positive way. I was like, man, for years I would sit there and do the calculation, get out my phone or, figure out what 20% is. And then I started figuring out, okay, just give $2 more. I was like, $2 to you doesn't mean shit, but $2 to them multiplied is so helpful. And it's little things like that that just keep adding up. Now, I will say, if it is bad service, there have been a few times where I've given such a small tip because I was actually pissed that they were awful. There is a steakhouse in New York where I think I gave a 10-cent tip because I was like, you're lucky I don't just flip this fucking table
Oh
and go off,
man,
because it was
All right.
so unbelievably bad. Like I just got left alone. Like the waiter just screwed off, and then they came back like an hour later and they're like, do you want anything? And I was like, mother, I want to put this hand across your face is what I want to do.
Oh man, yeah.
Yeah. But
I feel that.
but there have been a few times where I'm like, I can't in good conscience tip well here. I was like, but I'm not going to go to the manager, and everybody has bad days, but I am very, very much not happy. Very much not happy right now. So I will admit that. I may get my ass kicked for that one, but that's okay. That's a hill I'll die. I haven't done it in so long that usually if I tip 20%, that means you did not do a good job.
Yeah, it's like that's where it changed to where it's like, yeah, now that's the standard and you try not to tip less, but if
oh no, my buddy Adam and I talk about that a lot, about people not knowing how to do customer service, to where there have been moments where we have not been Karens, but we have literally went, you do realize you're interacting with somebody who chooses to be here and is paying, like, please just be, you don't have to be overly kind, but you can not treat me like shit. like come on, man. So, oh God. Okay. I'm gonna get off this ramble. Okay. So you making knives, and you said you're still working, as a prop, doing some props. We'll get back in, but do you ever do anything just kind of as a piece of art? Any kind of metal work? It's just straight up just art.
yeah, I had like one sculpture commission, I think last year, maybe a little longer than that. That's something I kind of want to start trying to foster again, at least do one a year. But as it like just being making for art's sake, I really haven't, after the making knives kind of grew for me beyond it kind of being a hobby. That's what it was going to be. And
Okay.
now it is monetized.
Okay. That's good. That's good.
Yeah.
little
Yeah,
clap for that.
yes and no. There's always that, like, oh yeah, it's different when now it's something I love and I want to be the best that it can be, but now it's for these other reasons than
Right.
a personal enjoyment, which is one good. On the other end, it's now scary. There's like a gravity to everything.
Yeah. Well, okay, not to get in the weeds on this, but I too worked for myself for 5.5 years. So and maybe this is something that needs to be cut out later. Just tell me. But is like the prop making the thing that's making the base level of income in order to make the knives, or is it something you actually enjoy doing, like doing
Yeah,
the prop
I
making?
enjoy it. I enjoy both. I'm not a
Okay.
straight up prop maker anymore. I am like carpenter, technician, shop manager for
Yeah.
a theater here in Cleveland.
Okay.
Um, and it's kind of like everything's kind of settled where it's like kind of two continually operating like
Okay.
part-time jobs now. Um, and yeah, and it is more of a job, but it's in something in like an industry and a space and people that I care about.
Yeah.
Um,
I was going to say, do you get bored easily? Do you like having that weird diversity of work to where you're not just focusing on one thing the whole damn time?
I do. I think that's what's picked the industry because like every couple of weeks is something totally different. And when there's kind of like a lull, especially um in a theater season, I get to scratch this other itch of like being a shop nerd of like,
Okay.
oh, I'm gonna make, this setup on this table saw very efficient. I'm gonna make this vacuum duct system. I'm gonna make sure, oh yeah, kind of rehook up our air system and do all, to
Yeah.
scratch that other like efficiency and tool itch too.
And are there things in like the prop world that inform the knife world or that push you in a different direction, maybe in the knife world, or make you feel more comfortable doing that?
Yeah, I think the big thing was is detail, kind of having a pretty self-scrutinous eye for like what I know I can get away with, what mistakes I know can be hidden and what can't, and what to kind of parse my focus on. And um, it's kind of like channeled the self-criticism into like instead being like, oh, I have this thing that I've made and for some reason it's just not good enough, or something like that, kind of self-doubt. Instead turn it into like, oh, I think it's not working out because this proportion looks off in the hand, or there's like scratches here in the light, or this angle looks strange. And instead it's like, okay, instead of beating myself up about it and just having this thing in the garbage, I can focus on what things I can improve, or what I could do differently with my equipment to change that, to not have that happen in the future.
Okay.
So it is kind of treating it like a job in that way. Like when you have to make a bunch of castings of a mold, and um, you have kind of one mistake that continually happens after like you've casted like 10 pieces, instead of being like, oh no, I just ruined this thing. You're kind of in a little bit more of a time crunch to like make it work. So it's, instead of just being like, oh, I did a bad job, to, oh, let me look at this mold and see, is there some kind of undercut, is there something I can change,
Okay.
that way I could just keep this process going.
Well, it sounds like you're kind of doing it on your own, but do you wrap any kind of continuing education for metalwork or knife making into your, I don't want to say daily routine, but like, do you kind of check in on those? Like, you know what? I need to watch some more videos or read some more articles just to make me a better practitioner.
Yeah, I do that in between, like that videos asking, the people who I ask advice from, um, kind of, even if like I'm spending a few hours in the shop on a day that I'm working at the theater, I still do try to put a few hours in to kind of figure out like, how can I improve this, or
Mhm.
what's something, what are my next steps, maybe look at like a project I have in the future and try to figure out like, okay, I've done these like forging tests, you know, take a fresh eye look a day after I've done it and be like, what could I do differently? Like, so there is like, even if I don't have time to like swing a hammer or turn on a grinder like every day, I'd still try to do something like
Okay. Okay.
mindful and productive.
Okay. Uh, Going back to the Japanese knife making. So is there a certain kind of steel that is only used for that, or do you work with? Have you ever worked with Damascus, or is it just there's one kind of metal you work with solely for that?
I mean, you can make them out of whatever you want, but I do a specific process when I make the knives that a
Okay.
certain type of steel is really great for. So I use 1095 steel, which is a really high carbon content steel. Um, and I do that because the way in which I heat treat the knives is uh, a traditional process called differential hardening. And it's the process that puts like the classic wavy lines you see on like a
Oh yeah.
katana samurai sword.
Yeah.
Um, and that kind of comes out with making blades out of a high carbon steel. And that's kind of why I use that specific steel.
Okay.
You can still do that process with like a Damascus, but that already has like an inherent pattern to it. And doing that whole thing, you probably wouldn't see the pattern that I put in between all those like layers of folded steel.
Okay.
Um,
Damn, you just kind of piggybacked on what my next question was. You did good. I don't, you seen it in the reflection. I'm like, no, I'm just kidding. Do you know the biggest piece you've made and the smallest piece you've made?
yeah, I don't make weapon things really anymore, but the biggest piece I made was kind of an early piece I did, which was kind of like a almost like 2.5 foot long, kind of swordy knife
Okay.
machete thing. Um,
Awesome. This keeps getting
yeah,
better. This keeps getting better.
yeah, it was pretty cool. It's not up to snuff in terms of like its hardness or anything, but I still have it in the shop. Um, that was just like a big mess around with processes. I did like a little uh brass carving on the pommel of like a carving of my dog's head on the back, like for
That's
fun. It's
awesome.
something like I
That's
I keep
awesome.
in the shop. Um, Let me see the smallest piece I've made. Knife wise, probably like a small paring knife.
Okay.
Probably sits at like just like 4 inches maybe or so. Um, and probably yeah, even smaller than that, like a little uh very early thing I've made too, like a little kind of letter opener that you can like
Oh
hold
yeah.
between a couple fingers. Um, but now everything I make kind of stays between like the 6 to 9 inch range of like your general kitchenware.
Okay. It is my dream one day, although I'll probably never be able to afford this because I know this is going to be very expensive to make. But I was walking through we have an art alley downtown, and there was a homeless dude walking the other way. He never looked up. All he said as he was passing me, he was like, "Beard like that, you should be carrying a battle axe." And so my business name is Feral Giant, and I actually made a
Oh no.
patch that looks like the He-Man logo with He-Man's axe, battle axe. I was like, one of these days, I want a battle axe, damn it. I want like a big fuck off battle axe. But I
Yeah.
know that would be
Oh,
so expensive.
have you ever seen makes these really long YouTube videos? I fucking love this guy. Michael Cthulhu on YouTube.
Nope, but I'm writing it down. That's awesome.
Yeah,
That's a great name too. Good Lord.
like makes big metal but still kind of prop weapon style, but working out of metal like weapons from like video games and movies. Like we'll make that like 6.5 foot long like Final
Yeah,
Fantasy
hell yeah.
Buster sword and stuff like that.
Hell yeah.
um and yeah, it's got like a ton of those videos. They're really great, like tuck into for a long period of time. They're usually like a couple hours long, but like a really great personality. And yeah,
Like
one
I
of
said,
my
I'll never be able to afford that because it'll probably cost as much as a car. Make one of those proper.
yeah, oh, yeah, like proper. If it was going to be a big,
Well,
big
I don't even know if
like
I
real.
think maybe like 4 foot, like one that you could actually hold with, almost like the size of a baseball bat. Is what I don't want one of those. Good God, no, not one of those 6 foot ones. I will hurt somebody with that. The little one, I'll probably still hurt somebody, but it'll be
I bet
workable.
between like bladesmithing and being like a prop maker, I feel like maybe I could help you figure out one within budget of how to do it.
Yeah. Oh man.
That
God.
would be pretty fun to
Yeah.
just make a big silly like battle axe and maybe not completely worry about how perfectly tempered it is, but it's just
No.
more about having the big cool thing.
Yeah, that's the thing is whoever built it, I'd have to be like, don't make it sharp. Please don't make it sharp. Please don't make it sharp because I will hurt somebody. But it's also, I'm so damn big. Like it would look, I would love to get like me and then get somebody small like Hannah and her hold it. And just the difference and just like this giant guy, it looks, that's a normal size. Holy shit. No, that's not a normal size.
Yeah. Well, I like that too. Yeah, you make it sharp enough that if you just dropped it hard enough, yeah, you could crack a tree in half, but it's not.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Is there anything like in that metalworking or knife making world that you would like to see more of? Just in general?
See more of, man. I think okay, coming from this place, there is a lot of, but I do love to see people getting into making them.
I think your mic may be bumping on your shirt.
I see it. It fell. Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Sorry. Say what you're saying.
Yeah.
I have a fake editor named Kirk or Kurt. I can't remember which one. He hasn't gotten a shout out in a while. But Kirk, cut all that out. None of this will be cut out. It'll all still be in there. Thank you for listening. Cool. So sorry, you were saying.
Yeah. I like to see the community of makers grow, I think. And that kind of goes further than knife making to really any practice. I like seeing like growing communities of people making things. It seems like it's getting more and more present. I like that it kind of fights against and goes up against the like evil factory drop shipping kind of nature of everything. And I like where it's going. I like that it's growing more. I like that people are, even across in a more general sense, are growing in appreciation for handmade things, or at least like people making things with or selling things with an intimate knowledge of their products. And so I guess that's a little more general than knife making, but it fits into that of like I like seeing people make things and always want more of it.
Oh yeah. I not completely analogous, but it's like when I buy new records, I try to go directly to the band, or when I see them live, to buy directly from them as opposed to going like Amazon and shit. And I know that's not completely analogous, but I was like, if there's a way I can put more money into the person that actually made this shit, I will do that 100 times out of 100. Like, same thing with the makers and stuff.
Yeah, I think that fits in completely. That's always been present, but I kind of feel like now more than ever, it's growing more into the general public. Like a lot more people are caring about locally made things, or things where you can tell that it came from a specific source, not like you see something on an online store. Even Etsy sometimes is guilty of it too. If you take the time for some items to like reverse image search it, you could see that it's like, oh, this is actually like a 20-cent item from some other factory than, you know, being marketed as handmade item.
Yeah.
Um,
But
yeah.
there's also the other side of like something I've struggled with is if you buy something like from you, it's like you've got to use it. Don't put it on a shelf and never use it or only use it for special occasions. I know you paid a lot for it, but use that damn thing because
Oh
that's
yeah.
the point of it.
I like that you said that. I said this. Oh man, I was having a meeting about like displaying items at another storefront a couple days ago. That kind of thing came up. Like, oh, is this a thing that, you know, you can keep in a case? It is more aesthetic. And I don't know what came over me. Maybe it's because of a really casual environment. And I go, I'll tell you, and I tell this to everyone, that if you don't use it and you just put it in a case, I will haunt you. Um,
Wait, we're creating t-shirts left and right on this podcast. That also need for your brand of t-shirt, it needs to be that, and then underneath it, is it Burley Fabulous Knives right underneath it. That is a
Yeah.
big phrase, brother.
If you don't use them, I will haunt you.
Yeah. Yeah, with a knife. And we know a person. I can do it, but I'm going to pass it off to Hannah. We know a person who loves weapons, loves knives, that can totally do that. That's merch idea.
Yeah.
You
I'll
will
have
make
to commission.
you will make tens of dollars on that idea. You are well. I will buy. You got to make one on grown folk size, but I will gladly rock a T-shirt that says that. If you don't use it, I will haunt you. That's amazing.
Okay, yeah, I'll keep that as a note, because
that's amazing.
Because it hit pretty well, because I'm very of a like I do get that from people who like message me to order custom ones too and other things. I'm like, oh yeah, you know, yeah, sure, they have this like traditional hamon pattern in them and they're high polish and everything, but yeah, use it for like literally everything. Cut up hot dogs to feed to your pet.
Yeah,
I don't care. You won't ruin the polish because, you know, they're high polished, because that helps in rust prevention. So like, don't worry about it.
Well, it's like there's a friend of mine who's a really good guitar player, and I bought a banjo because I was like, I'm going to learn how to play on the hardest instrument to play this on because it's so hard to learn on a banjo. And he was like, here's my bit of advice for you. He's like, get a guitar stand and leave it sitting out in your living room. Because if you put in a case and put it up, you'll never play the damn thing. But when it's sitting in your living room, you're like, I got a few minutes. I'm going to watch a TV show. I'm going to sit here and practice while I'm doing it. And I think about the same thing with knives is I finally got one of those magnetic holders that's on my cabinet to where I have a big knife and a bread knife up on that damn thing. And I end up using them a lot more because they're out. They're not in a block tucked away to the side. They're up to where I can see them. And I use them a lot more.
Yeah, it's like part of the reason I don't. Because I get asked about like, oh, do you build, you know, boxes and cases for them?
Yeah.
And I just like, no, not really. I have like a little, like plastic kind of blade cover that you get when you buy them, and I go, that's kind of it. Just like, oh, I want you to just stuff it into your kitchen drawer that you pull from, or like wherever.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want them locked away.
Is there anyone that you would like to work with that you've kind of discovered through learning this process?
Oh man, I think it's going to be the Smiths I talked to in Japan. They popped up as like a recommended, oh, you should follow these people a long time ago. But they're really cool because it's just like a Smith and his family, and they live in like the middle of the woods on like a tropical island in Japan with an apprentice who's like Canadian, and they are just like, they live like this dream Studio Ghibli life that I want to be like. I want to just go there and like make steel and stuff with you, because, you know, they make their craft, and sometimes they'll host people as experiences to like do like a forging class or something. but they just
What
seem really cool and chill.
what are their names? Let's give them a shout out. Also, so I can look them up later because that sounds amazing.
Yeah, let me pull it up so I don't get it wrong.
Okay.
The Smith is Nobuya. That's his name. Nobuyah. Is and it's just like a cool older guy. Like some of them are the pieces that he makes, and then it's like these
Okay.
cool I'm buying stuff at a farmer's market. Here's my cool motorcycle and this beautiful island vista.
That's amazing.
Okay, I'm gonna go make a beautiful knife now. And I'm just like, I want to work with them. They are great.
Okay. Do you set goals or checklists? Like, do you have a goal of like in the next 5 years, I want to be able to figure out a way to go over there and do this?
Yeah, I usually try to set the goals like smaller. That one's in a 5-year goal.
Okay.
I think right around now I have like a kind of pie in the sky per year goal at a time. And it's like the kind of this year goal right now is make my process more efficient to expand into like a couple other storefronts. I don't have like a personal website set up yet or like a shop on Etsy. That's on like the this year goal. The this year goal also is I have this one billet of folded Japanese steel called blue paper steel, and I want to forge one or two nicer, fancier blades out of that material and have it and not ruin them.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Do you know what you would like to do in like the next 10 years? Like, is there because I always think with goals, you got to put some stupid ones on there. You got to put some ones that may not make it this year, but you got to go for the brass rings sometimes.
Yeah, I've got one and I don't know where it sits, but maybe it's because I'm like a little nerdy introvert, but I'm like not one for really wanting to like go set up like tents and booths at fairs and stuff. I think general afraid.
Yeah.
But I do have a sometime in the future goal of wanting to kind of combine my like scenic and prop making skills and kind of build like a replica like street ramen shop facade and kind of have that as a traveling booth and sell knives through there.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
That's like the 5-year goal. Set it up, find like larger conventions or markets, and just kind of figure out, this like really make it look like it's a dirty corner ramen shop. Like kind of put like a layer of grime on some things. Have like a kind of forced perspective back area that I would store things in, to have like a pot on a stove with like a fog machine coming out of it, like really kind of set up this replica ramen shop for
this
like
is amazing.
A selling booth. That's my weird longer term goal.
So here's my longer term goal for you. We have a thing here every year called the Punk Rock Flea Market. If you do that, you have to come and set up at the Punk Rock Flea Market down here in Knoxville, man.
Yeah, you got it.
Yeah, like I will. Trust me, if you like food, you can ask Hannah. You will leave here about 10 to 20 pounds heavier because I will take you to all of the good places.
Awesome.
Oddly enough, if you like ramen, there's a place here called Sutry's High Gravity Tavern. It's craft beer. They have the best ramen in town. And it's people go in there and like, this is insane. This is like a craft beer bar, and they have insanely good ramen. Like it does not, it's not analogous at all. It doesn't work at all, but it doesn't. Also, right next to it, they opened if you like video games, a video game bar called Harriet's Lounge. where they have shit tons of pinball machines. The thing you'll like as a maker, they built their entire bar out of old pinball table tops, and
Oh, cool.
they put lights in it to where it actually lights up.
Oh,
It's
man.
the shit, man. It's the shit.
I do feel though that I would get mistaken for being an actual ramen stand, but maybe that helps with sales. Be like, no, I don't sell food.
Yeah. Oh
You
no.
want this?
I got one for you. There's a t-shirt maker named Johnny Cupcakes that he makes his stores look like cupcake stores, complete with like ovens. And the amount of negative reviews he gets on Yelp, they're like, I went into Johnny Cupcakes looking for a cupcake, and they're selling t-shirts. Like, what the hell?
Oh yeah. I'm sure I would be tagged in a whole bunch of like, there was no food at this place, but they kept saying, in this display case where it looks like there should be like refrigerated fish, there was just a bunch of knives in there.
I will say the one thing you got to do is you got to figure out how to manufacture a smell that smells like a ramen shop. That would be awesome. Actually,
yeah.
because Johnny Cupcakes does that. He has figured out a smell that smells like cupcakes, baked cupcakes in the shop.
Oh, do a thing. So like, in like restaurants, there's like those like those vent fans. You like put that in there, and in between like the space, find like a really good packet of like instant ramen or something, and kind of have it in there and blow the smell out. That's what I want to do. That's the goal. I want to have like
this
all out for it.
Oh my god. This is okay. Is there a famous person or like a famous chef that you would like to have one of your knives?
Oh man, that is a thing I did not think about. I mean, there's like the Klee Iron Chef Michael Simon thing, like that could be like pretty fun too. Also,
you mentioned you dropped Studio Ghibli. It could just be like a director animator that likes to cook that's in the Studio Ghibli system.
I don't know. That's a thing. That's like a thing I legitimately haven't thought about.
Figure that out for the next 10 years. Like, who do I want to have my work in their hand? There you go.
Or at the very least, I'm having one of those moments where like maybe I did think about it, but now that I'm asked the question, it's like your brain is just like, we're gonna delete that.
Yeah.
Now.
Oh my god.
And then I'll message you like a week later and be like, it was this person.
Oh my god. And that'll be in the intro. It's like, okay, make sure you follow him on Instagram. And he said, spoiler alert, here's the answer to the question in hour 6 of the podcast.
Yeah.
That's my running joke. In hour 7 of the podcast, we get into this, and he figured out the answer. Is there any shop, any store or magazine or anywhere you'd like to see your work sold or published?
That's another good one that has immediately left my brain, because I'm like focusing on local markets. Although at somewhere, I think it's just because we talked about it earlier, and I love the place. I do want to have like a display of pieces somewhere in New Mexico as like a permanent display. I think partly as an excuse to go back there for work related reasons and kind of always have a piece of myself there.
I'm telling you, just make a turquoise handled one and you'll be out. No, I'm just kidding. Sorry. So I thought of a weird question before we get towards the end, but I always see the Instagram ads, and I apologize for this, that it's like colored blades. Like it'll be like bright blue or bright yellow. How in the hell is that done? Can you dye the metal or what in the hell?
So like those bright rainbow colors. Oh, I can't remember. It's like a type of stainless or titanium or something, and that is in like a tempering process of the different types of exposure to heat. Will get those colors out of the metal, and it's a little bit of a toss-up sometimes whether they'll actually stay in the metal, because it's usually just like a microscopic layer that indicates that the metal has been to a specific temperature.
They're so weird looking. I think some
Yeah.
of them also may be porcelain. I think I have seen that term used, which seems weird. A porcelain knife seems odd.
Oh yeah, there are. Yeah. There are ceramic ones.
Yeah. Or
They
ceramic.
are.
Sorry. There's
Yeah, they're impossible to sharpen once they're
yeah.
dull. That's
Okay. Yeah.
the main thing.
Don't waste your
Yeah.
money on those. All
Yeah,
right.
because
I
it's
may
usually the material that you would like sharpen a knife on.
oh
So
yeah.
unless you
Yeah.
had like a grinder like I have to grind my knives, it would be like good luck to
Oh
get
my
an
God.
edge back on those.
I may have interrupted you. I thought you looked like you were going to say something, but I may have interrupted you with that. No. Okay. Here's the last big question is if you could talk to the 14-year-old version of yourself, what would you tell them?
Um, I would tell them, uh, much to probably like you've expected, trying to do this as your way of life is going to be a big upward slog.
Yeah.
And it does not get any better, but you learn to have more fun doing it.
Okay. Okay. I think that's a good one.
Yeah.
I end up talking to a lot of kids because I went to a very rough high school here in town, and everybody at home that listen to this, drink. You can have a drink because I mentioned Fulton again, but it's a very rough school. And I go back and talk to the kids, and I'm always like, you can make money in art. You can make a living in art is what I tell them. It's like, if you're very good, you will find a way to make a living. Don't ever become something else like work in a factory because you don't think you can survive. You can survive. There are
Yeah.
ways.
And yeah, to that point, I would also say like, yeah, it's an industry kind of just like anything
Yeah.
else. If you have to, no matter what, if it's art or being a veterinarian or something else, like there's still an equal amount of work involved. Working in trades, as a carpenter or plumber, like it all takes work and there's uncertainty in all of
Yeah.
it. So yeah, might as well go for art because there's gonna be the same amount of work and growth and struggle as
Yeah.
picking any other industry. So
Yeah. Well, that's a good note to go out on. Positivity.
yeah,
Positivity
there we
reigns
go.
supreme, except
Yeah.
for if you don't use your knives, he will haunt you.
You will be haunted, yes, in your lineage.
Never forget. Thank you for being on.
Thank you so much for this as well. This was a lot of fun. I really appreciate the reach out.